of all, I encourage people, go and look this up. If you think I'm making this up, go to their website and look this up. It's called the Archon X Prize. Now, what we know, Steve, is that archons are ancient, powerful, the most powerful demonic spirits that the Bible identifies as the powers against which we are in spiritual warfare. And even in the literature, the ancient literatures, if you take the less threatening use of the word archon, which could refer to an evil ruler, the question still comes up, what evil ruler or what demonic spirit could these scientists possibly be referring to? What are they looking for in genetics? What are they looking for that would cause them to name this the Archon X Prize? Are they looking for something in the blood? Are they looking for something in genetics that they're trying to reactivate?
The answer is
combine all of these different sciences, biotechnology, nanotechnology, neuropharmacology, transgenics, all of these are sciences that seek to entirely alter what God made. And if you extrapolate this in the very near future, and when I say near future, I mean very near future, because we're already doing it now in laboratories around the world. So imagine just even 1 decade from now, just 7 or 8 years or 10 years from now, the kind of applications that geniuses like Ray Kurzweil or philosophers like Oxford's Professor Nick Bostrom envision, where in the very not too distant future, humans are going to be combined with synthetic plant and animal genetics. What does that sound like? Which, by the way, is already happening at the embryonic level around the world. It's already happening at above embryonic level in dark budgets. But in any case, if you extend what we're already doing into the future, given many people's beliefs that this represents the next step in human evolution, and law schools around the world right now, for people who think that I'm overly speculating here, law schools, Oxford, Stanford, the Birkbeck Law School out of England, are already hosting transhuman conferences now to determine how the law is going to apply or constitutionally protect these new hybrid humans. There's also universities that are conducting special series of lectures on transhumans to acquaint college students right now with the issues surrounding transhumanism en route to post-human status. Well, if you pay attention to all these quickly emerging facts, it gets easier to see how humans of demigod status, that's all you can compare them to, are going to be a very soon reality. Within National Geographic magazine said that within, and they actually wrote this, I think 2 years ago, they said that within 10 years, 1 decade, humans, as we know them, as the sole higher intelligent occupiers of planet Earth, will cease to be a fact. That in fact, many of the Earth's smartest scientists and philosophers right now have already come to accept this eventuality as being unavoidable. In fact, Steve, I don't know if you saw this, there was a headline at the New York Times. This might only be maybe 6-7 days ago. We ran it at Raiders News Network, I think last week, end of last week. And the name of the article was called "Technology That Outthinks Us Could Become Our Master."
Right, I
did that article.
Yep, I did. I linked to it.
And this was Werner Vinge. I mean, he first was the guy who authored the coming technological singularity. And he's got this new book out now, and he's warning that if we don't couple our mind, join ourselves with greater than human artificial intelligence in the near future, then we run the risk of being overcome by and ruled by future AI machines that are part human that are part machine, part biological matter, and that these things might see us as nothing more than cattle. So, according to futurists like Vinge, we're not even going to have an option, a choice in the near future. So, this opens the door to this huge amount of questions from all these disciplines of life, and the parts that interest me, of course, are 2 things. One, what it means on the most intimate level regarding our humanity, who we are, and how all of this portends to change us for good or evil. And secondly, more importantly, it also interests me because of the Stargates, the pathways, the portals that we want to talk about, which can be both physical and metaphysical and supernatural things that can be opened. You know, Professor Bostrom, he actually earned his prestigious seat at Oxford University for his synthetic biological matter is going to result in opening portals, new modes of perception. And he talks about how animals, can hear at higher decibels, how they can navigate using sonar, and so on. And he talks about how some can even see in the different wavelengths of the light spectrum. And of course, on a spookier note, that might be future humans, near future humans, who can see into and interact with what we call spirit world.
Right, and I think we're talking too about when I want to go back to what Ventnor was looking for, Tom. They were looking and still continue to look for. They're looking for the seed of the Nephilim. They're looking for the fallen ones. That's why so many giant finds, when you have molars and you have actual entities from the past, they're reconfiguring that. The British Museum was going to bring back Ramses almost 10 years ago. But I think the thing is, when you're dealing with non-human intelligence, we need to talk about or non-human pre-intelligence that's occupying. In other words, we've got this classic, I get it thrown up in my face all the time. Well, you're just talking about Neanderthals, Steve. We're talking about giants. I'm talking about things with so highly developed psychic abilities, with such knowledge that absolutely in the natural mind and the natural man, and these things, by the way, have a way of even tricking those who are releasing them. We are going to create a situation where literally only the remnant, by the power of God, can be kept from being, quote, assimilated in the Borg. So what Ventnor and those guys are doing, they're looking for the seed of the Nephilim. And they're also really big, Tom. I had too many people tell me this, that are high-ranking, and through all of the different areas of the government, they're looking for the bloodlines. Well, they're not just talking about the Habsburgs, and they're not just talking about the nonsense about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and the Knights Templar. They're talking about the supernatural bloodline that God put an end to. And isn't it interesting that now all of this talk about human, you can sum it all up. We just said it in the first hour or first 2-hour show we did. These entities, coupled with the scientists, are cooperating for the total destruction, annihilation, end of all mankind. And that's what I believe is so amazing about the words of Jesus. You see, what you and I are talking about is beyond the veil. What you and I are talking about is the if you will, the presentation of knowledge so that God's... And it only gets more extreme from here. No one in the world that I know of outside, and I don't say this, but I don't think there's any Christian taking this on further and faster and deeper than you and I have. Is that fair?
Absolutely not.
And the reason they're not is because most of them say, well, it doesn't affect me. Well, I say, maybe you ought to change the word to infect you, and maybe you would get a different handle on it. So we're talking about the absolute, if today, by the grace of God, through his infinite mercy, I really believe the Lord is opening the veil for those who have ears to hear and those who have eyes to see, to get a glimpse, because outside of the Lord Jesus, Jesus said there's never been a time like this, Tom, never, even in antiquity, even in pre-Adamic intelligence like that's coming, and I can't even wrap my mind around that. Can you really?
Well, what I can say is, Steve, that what you and I are talking about now is singularly probably the most, not just interesting, important point that ought to be being talked about. It still continues to astonish me that we don't hear the national voices, the talking heads for the Christian community, addressing these issues when the President's own Council on Bioethics, Leon Cass, after hearing what was presented in the Council on Bioethics, came out of that. He wrote a book, but he talked about how that this is singularly the most important issue ever facing mankind. Other scientists have come forward and said it's the most frightening technology the world has ever faced, and that it could literally lead to an extinction-level event for the human race. Well, these are the president's council members, and yet what's the church doing? I'm not being critical, by the way. As the pastor for 25 years, I love the church. I love the people in the church. But getting up on every Sunday morning and talking about, 3 points to live a happy, healthy life, that's all wonderful, but we better start facing the serious issues that are not being talked about. Something that quite possibly ties all of the issues